Hello everyone, Ben Wright here, aka The Mysteries of. Welcome to part 2 of this tutorial. So you will remember from part 1 we created a nice trancey plucky sound. Now what I've done in the meantime is I've worked on a few of the effects and I've added some strings underneath them. I'm not going to show you how I did the strings, they're samples anyway, so there's not much to it. This is how it sounds at the moment. So you'll see the strings are pretty key, giving you a lot of body, and I'm going to use that pretty much throughout as the main. So I'm going to have that underneath the pluck, and I'm going to be working with that a little bit later in the tutorial series. That's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about drums. So I'm going to add some drums to this loop just to kind of give it a bit more of a feel, obviously. And just to save time, I've already set up some drums so that we can see what we're working with. Okay. So you'll notice that gives it a bit more body. So with you get the okay, and let's see how it sounds with the loop. Now, it doesn't sound like much currently. I think the levels are about right, but the actual drums themselves, they just don't have any punch to them, and this is what this particular tutorial is all about. Today we're going to be talking about how to get your main drums, so that's your kick and your snares generally, especially for electronic music. It's the ones that are kind of holding the rhythm together, giving them the main punch and body that they need to really fill everything out. So what we'll be doing is we're going to be talking about compression and equalization on each of them, and whilst they've got similarities for each of them, it's going to be slightly different depending on whether it's the snare, the clap, or the kick. So let's get straight into it. We'll start with the kick. Okay. So first things first is we open up our compressor. Like that. Okay. Now, give you a quick run through of what the compressor is, and I haven't set up any funky default on this, but I'll put everything down to the standard value so I can kind of go through what this is. So if you don't know what a compressor does, it essentially takes the sound from whatever instrument, synth, sample, anything you've got really, and it compresses it. So what it does is if you've got a waveform, it will take the waveform, and depending on the values you give some of these triggers, it will compress the waveform down, so it will squeeze it together, and then and that will compress it based on a particular ratio that you give it, and then you can add some gain to then heighten or lift the velocity back up again. So this is a great way of kind of neatening out peaks within certain waveforms that you want to get rid of, and you want to kind of keep. And for vocals, it's fantastic. It keeps all of the peaks at a standard level, and it also helps to kind of heighten the overall velocity of the sound as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the kick. So this is completely dry. It's good, and it's got a lot of low end, but it hasn't got any punch. It still feels a bit muddy. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with compression. I always start off with compression. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to compress this. And what I'm going to do is every time I lower this, what this is doing is it's basically lowering the level of the peaks which are being compressed. So what you'll see when I lower this further and further down is you'll slowly see something being cut off here. And what we want to do is as soon as something's cut off, we want to compress it by a certain ratio. The drums, especially in electro, hip hop, and you want to give them quite a big amount of compression. So we'll go 6 to 1 just to start with. Okay, so let's slowly reduce this threshold. You'll see we're already cutting stuff off. We're only lowering it down to minus 7.5, and this is essentially the level which is actually being cut off by. So it's cutting off about 4 decibels, I guess. But we want to compress this even more. It's a big thumpy drum sound. So let's get this over there. Now you'll hear it's gone actually on lower in volume now because we're actually compressing so much of the sound. and we're compressing it down by, let's say, it's about 10 to 12 decibels. So what we can then do is we can then increase the gain so that actually the volume or the velocity is increased. And we give the sound back again. So we'll probably get up to about 5 decibels. And you hear that's now sounding a lot more thick, but you'll notice it has the same, pretty much the same level that it did before. Okay, that's kind of the basics. I would love to show you like a diagram, but it's kind of all you need. Now here we come to the attack and release, and essentially what this does is this dictates how quickly the compression is applied and how quickly it's then released or taken off. So right now I've got them both at the lowest they've got. Now if I, by having the attack so low, what's happening is the compression is just coming straight in, bang. And you don't necessarily always want that. It can probably sense a bit of a click at the front. So if we up the attack, now what I'll do is I'll take it all the way to the end for effect. Now it's very subtle, but you may notice that it's kind of like there's a bit of an attack feel to it because the compression's not coming in until quite late. So normally what we'll do is reduce this. And you'll notice that the punch is coming in harder when we get it to around here. That sounds about right to me. Yeah, that sounds good. And that's coming in real nice. Okay, now we'll work with the release as well. This is how quickly the compression is released. So essentially, if we have a huge release, the compression will stay on for a very, very long time. Now this will probably, with this type of kick, it will probably help sustain the punch. So it'll stay heavy for longer. So we'll try that all the way across for effect. And you'll notice here the compression is still staying on for longer than the actual notes is playing itself. What we'll do is we'll reduce this. And there you go. You notice that it's now coming down. Now, depending on how hard we want the actual kick to sound in the mix, you can basically judge based on this particular this line here, essentially how long it lasts. And you can put the clap in, correct. And you'll notice the compression going down pretty much the same time the clap's coming in. That's pretty good for this type of beat, especially if you're going to be doing a 4/4. I'm going to reduce this just slightly because I don't think we're going to do a 4/4 for its entirety. And there's other ways of working this, but I think that's quite good. Okay, so now we've got the kick. Now we'll do it with just bypass. You'll notice it's a lot area. If you've got headphones on right now, it's a lot area. With that, oof, punching through. It's really lovely, and that's going to really come through in the mix as well. Okay. Second thing to do then is to add an EQ. Okay, so we will go to, what am I doing? Let me just double click here. So for kicks, as everyone knows, low frequencies, very bassy, and depending on the type of sound type of music you're going to make, you don't want anything too much in the mids here, or certainly not the high trebles if there is anything. These equalizers are great. You press Analyzer and you play the sound, and it shows you the note there. Now you'll notice there's a lot going on over here. Okay, I'm going to ignore that for now. I'm just going to show you one quick trick that I use for electronic, especially electronic music that's using a lot of sub-bass, which is what I'm going to be creating in the later tutorials. You'll notice there's a lot of sub-bass happening here. So these are the lower frequencies. Sub-bass is usually kind of 60 hertz and below. And there's a lot going on here. And that's going to make everything really muddy if you put in a sub-bass. So the trick is that you just literally just throw a cutoff. I usually put it up to about 80. Now, like I said, sub normally is about 60 and below. Okay, so you'll notice that's going to cut off quite a lot of the subs there. But it's I can promise you that's going to stop it from being quite muddy at the end of the mix. Now you'll notice this line is going down here. So there's still certain amounts of these lower frequencies. But what I sometimes like to do as well, just give it more punch. But if it's feeling a bit empty, you can just heighten this up. Ooh, give it a little nudge. There you go. Bang. There you go. That's not bad at all. Okay. Now, what's going on here? I really don't know. Now, what we can do is to check that. You can actually just run a single band, low cut on everything, Hallelujah. There you go. And you'll notice, this, so this figure corresponds to the figures here. And I put it on about 1,700 to kind of go around this figure here. And that's the kind of sound that's going on right now. Now, that's okay. I quite like it because it kind of adds to the top end of the kick, but I'm not sure about these higher ends here. I'm just going to lower this down. There you go. And that's probably going to stop a lot of the higher frequencies from the synths and stuff that we're going to be creating later on down the line from meshing with it and distorting. And this bit here, probably later on down the line, I'll probably put a little dip in that as well, just to see. But for now, just leave it as it is. Take that plugin off. Boom, bang, love it. And you'll notice that the level there is right where we want it. Brilliant. Moving on to the snares. Now, what I can do here, it's probably not a great idea, but I want this heavy snare. I'm going to work with this heavy snare first. And you'll notice it's quite a short sound. And I want it to have it quite a punch as well, similar to the heavy kick. So I'm just going to do Option Command and drag the compression across, and boom, we have that now on the heavy snare as well. So let's see how that sounds. Already brilliant, sounds great. And I noticed that's a bit too far to the right hand pan, so that sounds better. I like that. To be honest, I'm not going to work with that at all. We're just going to work with the equalizer now. So let's go with that. So same thing with the equalizer. Now what I'm going to do with the snares, and pretty much anything to stop your mix becoming quite muddy and very, when I say muddy, it's like really too much low end, is always analyze your sounds as they are. Right, now this is a snare drum, and you'll notice most of it is high frequency. You've got some huge peaks here, but you've also got lots of sub here. I don't know what's going on. So we just remove that. So we don't need it. It still has that body that we need. Okay, still got this kind of punch here, and I can guarantee that's probably going to affect some other areas of the song. But you notice that that's already sounding a bit better. If we remove that, it's just a bit of sub there, which is going to ruin everything. So pretty much all my sounds, I'll just throw this filter on, or this cutoff, sorry. To a frequency that works well to not kind of take away the main body of the sound, and that stops a lot of subby stuff coming through. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I don't think I want to do anything more with that sound. Okay. So final one is the clap. We'll work with the clap on its own. Now what I'm going to do is, again, I do like all of the compressions to be quite similar across the main drums, so I will drag that across, but I'm going to work with it this time. Because essentially this clap is a different sound. So I'm going to bypass this for now. And you'll notice this sound goes on for a much longer time. It's got a lot of release and sustain on that. So the idea is, if I have it, the compression as it is, I'm probably going to have to work with this release here. And depending on the levels, I might have to adjust the gain, because this is actually coming from a completely separate instrument to the kick. So let's have this. The level's gone a lot higher, for instance, okay? And that's because the compression is actually only being compressed up to about 6, whereas before it was on 12 for the kick. So we have to lower that. Okay? And the compression is actually coming off really quick. Now, what I want to do, I want to try and increase that to see if the compression can remain for a bit longer. Okay, maybe give it more crunch. Right, you'll notice that by doing this, actually, what's happening, by reducing the release, the compression's coming off quicker, but what it's doing is it's making the actual initial sound a lot more punchy. And you'll notice again, it's a good similar level. So just by adjusting the release here, we've managed to make the sound work a lot better. So we'll add this in with the kick now. Bypass this just to see what it sounds for. Yeah, it has a lot more punch now, just at those mid-ranges, certainly at the beginning. Okay. and what has the heavy snare as well. I think I'm going to reduce the levels of the snare a bit. That sounds good. So, final thing on the big clap, as with everything, I'm going to analyze the sounds. See again, so much sub there. We know what to do. Just mute that. That works. Okay. And later on down the line, I might adjust some of these levels as well. To be honest, I want to maybe lift this up the tiniest bit. Maybe move it across a little bit. I like that. Okay. Let's hear how it sounds in the mix now. That is sounding pretty good. You'll notice everything now just has so much more body to it. I'm going to reduce that a tiniest bit. And I think I might give this a bump up here as well. I like it. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. And now the final trick that I always do when I group sounds together. So this all sounds pretty good together. I don't want to have to adjust all of these individually again, especially not if we're going to be comparing it or mixing it down with these tracks here. So the last thing I do is, instead of having them all going to the stereo output, I'm going to throw them all on a bus. I'm going to throw them all on bus 1. What this is basically doing is grouping all of the outputs of these channels out of one single bus. And that means I can control everything that relates when they're all grouped together through this bus. And all my instrument buses, I always do them in capitals. So K and S, kick and snare, done. We can unsolo those, just solo that, and now you hear everything together. We only have to work with this one channel to hear everything together. If I want to turn that down in the mix, all I've got to do is bring that down. Like that. Okay, I think that's sounding pretty good. I've given you the basics on compression and how we can use those with drums. I've cheated a bit by duplicating, but to be honest, when you're working with electro music, using 4/4 beats, you want the kick and the snare to be sounding pretty similar in terms of punch and drive. That's what gives everything its rhythm, really. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to show you another little trick at the end of the next tutorial as well, how to make everything that little bit more crunchy as well. But for now, I've been Ben Wright. Hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I think tutorial number 3, we're going to work with some bass. Yes, getting straight into it. All right, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you the next one. Bye-bye.